Hey! So, this isn't really the video I wanted to make, but there's been a lot of stuff out recently, or not so recently, but there have been updates for things I've already played, and rather than taking the time to make individual videos for every single one of those games, I'm just going to round up the various scraps of scripts I've started and just make a little catch-all video because this rounds up winter for me, and summer for everybody else. So, let's get started. By the way, this isn't in chronological order of release or anything, it's just a jumble, but there will be timestamps so you can skip around for the stuff you're interested in hearing me yap about. Now, when I say a jumble, I mean a jumble. Here's what's on the docket today. Hexen plus Heretic, Doom the Dark Ages, Path of Exile 2, The Third Edict, Rival Stars Horse Racing, Umamasume Pretty Derby, Vaporwave Pinball, Roguelite Deck Builder, Crime Scene Cleaner, Help, I've Been Cursed with a Bubble Butt, Detroit Become Human, and Cyberpunk 2077. Okay, cool? Alright, now let's get started. So this is the video I had started writing a script for while I was literally in Fiji a couple weeks ago, because that's when this damn thing released. I can't catch a break, but it's okay because it's pretty good. So yes, this year's QuakeCon treat is the Heretic plus Hexen remaster, which is pretty exciting news considering we haven't gotten anything new from these IPs since 1996. And while I know that the modding scene for these games is much less popular, I think that may be in part to the fact that these games have basically gotten no official love in 30 years. I actually tried my hand at making a set of Heretic maps, and now I think I'm going to actually have to finish them. And truthfully, if you've played the originals, they're kind of, what's the word? Confusing. Hexen especially with its infinite portals. It's been a while since I've touched either game, so I figured now would be a good time to go back to basics. So what's actually in this remaster? We get the original games, Heretic, Shadow of the Serpent Riders, Hexen Beyond Heretic, and Hexen Death Kings of the Dark Citadel. We also get one new episode each for Hexen and Heretic, brought to you by Night Dive's team of experienced level designers, some of whom are colleagues of mine, and I'm very proud of them. And much like the Doom re-release we got last year, there's added mod support, a new OST by Andrew Hulshult, a vault with concept art and unused original content, widescreen graphics thanks to the talented Nash Mohandas, and NATO co-op and deathmatch in the coveted Kex engine. I'm fine with the majority of this, except the mod browsers, which as many of us understand from how Dooms has gone, that this will yet be another thing shoved at the community to de facto moderate. I know this part is in particular because of Bethesda, but I really just hope that since there isn't as big a modding scene for Hexen and Heretic, maybe there won't be as big of problems, even though I know people have already been uploading things without user permissions with not great results. I do know that this means that console players will be able to access mods now, but I really just hope it goes smoother than it did with Doom. I will say, I think this remaster is a bit less polished than last year's Doom remaster. There's some visual oddities with some of the maps, and one glaring visual bug is that keys still show up on your HUD if you die and restart a level, even if you don't actually have them in your inventory. However, overall, the maps are gorgeous. The only thing about the maps is that they're pretty spicy, even on lower levels. So just be aware that Faith Renewed is to Heretic what the Plutonia experiment was to Doom. And there's also some really good quality of life updates. I personally really liked the item tooltips because I can never remember what the items did. Hexen also includes a way to change classes in the middle of your playthrough, which is a highly interesting addition. I think the biggest problem I ran into when playing the new map sets is the same problem I had with Heretic and Hexen originally. The enemies are just really hard to see against many of the textures. I think it's probably due to how strangely limited the palette is for these games. Everything's the same colors, and I mean exactly the same colors. It could just be that I'm getting old and my eyesight's getting worse and worse with every passing year. However, I can't seem to find any accessibility options for color blindness or adjustment, which is a bit disappointing, but hopefully will come later. I'd argue this remaster needs it the most with the way these games look. The remixed OST I did see come under a bit of scrutiny for not being heretic-y enough, and I'm kind of ambivalent about this. I would say it feels very close to Hulshult's work on Medieval, and I don't think that's so much of a bad thing. I don't hear any obviously synthy bits, although I definitely have some conflicted feelings on the vocal additions on some of the tracks. Overall, it's fine, and if it's not your jam, the original OST is still there as well. Overall, another successful re-release. To be clear, I don't play these re-releases to play the classic games because I have GZ Doom for that, and I still find the Hex engine a bit awkward, but I never claimed to be a purist, so my interest in the games staying pure is a fairly limited thing anyway. I just really love seeing all the new content that's included, and overall, Night Dive & Co. did a great job. Man, you would think after all the yapping I did before this game ever came out, I would have a lot to say about it now that it is out, but weirdly, I don't. Like, it's a fully serviceable video game. It's what I would expect from a AAA budget with AAA developers and a AAA legacy. But for me, it's genuinely the first time where Doom didn't feel very Doom. And I know that's a thing a lot of people say, and especially with New Doom, but I've never felt this weird about a Doom game, even with Eternal. Even Eternal felt like it still loved and cared for what Doom was originally, even with the insane plotline that ballooned in weird and unexpected ways. And that's also not to say that Dark Ages doesn't care about what Doom is, but I don't know, there is something about the way this game is set up that feels like there's a missing connection between the game and the player. I think it's due to the plotline of Doomslayer being a literal tool for war, rather than treated like what may be left of the parts of him that still gives a bit damn about humanity. I don't know. It's actually really hard for me to articulate what it is, and to be honest, I guess I just don't vibe with the game as a Doom game. I just don't digest it as that. I'm not saying it's a bad game at all. It's a great game, it's well made, it's fun to play, and there's a lot of great combat and moments in it. And Thera is my new waifu, don't at me. And I'd like to like this game more, you know? But every time I pick it up, I go, wow, that's a cool building, wow, that was a fun fight, wow, that's a cool cutscene with great animation and voice acting, but I don't go, now, that's what Doom is all about. It's so strange because every time I've had a conversation with my partner about this, he vividly remembers the weekend I played this game and says I did have a really great time with it. And I did. I believe him when he says that. But it's also when I begin to think about the game critically for any length of time that I struggle to remember how I really actually felt about everything when I played the game, which is such a weird problem for me to have. I remember a lot of things about a lot of games, and I've played a lot of them, and I haven't even finished some of them. But there's this weird black hole in my brain that appears every time I try to talk about Dark Ages. I really have tried to write a script about this game many times, but every time I play this game, my brain goes into kind of a haze as I go to parry and melee and shoot and run and parry and melee and run and shoot, and you get it. Even though there's a lot of lore and information to take in, it kind of just goes in one ear and out the other, and I just look at pretty people that I know will never be important again in the lore that I already barely understand. But look, the game is pretty, the combat is fun, and it's well made. It's Doom, even if I don't really digest it as that. It's got demons and guns and metal music. This game was not made to specifically please one girl on the internet, and I'm aware of that. I am a-okay with what the game is. I don't hate it at all, so before you go smashing your keyboard in the comments, just know that I think the game is nice. But I still think the cape is kind of stupid. Sorry. That's right, 0.3.0 is finally here, and with it, Act 4, the interludes, and a boatload of changes to the game. I won't get into a huge bunch of specifics about class and skill changes because, frankly, that interests me way less. I just build my characters, and if they work, they work. If they don't, they don't. But I have been loosely following Zizarin's Tactician Guide after a failed start with a warrior build, and I'm having a lot of fun with that. One thing I will quickly interject about skills is that support gems are now repeatable, which is really exciting. So now this means instead of only using brutality on one skill, you can use it on multiple skills. And brutality, for example, is also upgradable. So there's a brutality 1, 2, and I believe 3. There's several levels to many of the support gems, so if you want to upgrade your damage or just have different effects, there are some downsides to the higher tiers, but that also means that they will work in certain ways a lot better. So, more flexibility for your builds. Woohoo! What does interest me the most is Act 4, which, even with my limited experience with Path of Exile 1, feels like a return to form. I'd actually begun to de-rust for this league in PoE 1 with a Marauder character, and once I got into Act 4 for Path of Exile 2, I felt an immediate connection to Act 1 of Path of Exile 1. I had actually wondered aloud if the mermaid siren boss was going to make a return, and to my delight, she did, in a way that felt much more beatable this time. Path of Exile has always had anti-colonialist messages, which I love, but Act 4 makes it extremely explicit with nods to Maori culture, which I can only but so much comment on as a Pākehā and an immigrant to boot. But I did love that they existed in the game at all. Characters with Tamoko, a Maori-esque island name of Whakapanu, and the Waharoa in the Halls of the Dead. Do I love that we're killing a bunch of Karui in the process? No. But at least our characters are sorry about it? The interludes, however, I was not particularly a fan of with its extremely spiky difficult. To be fair, I think this is in part my fault due to having several ugly duckling stages in my build as I moved from grenades only to ballistas, but the bosses felt a fair bit tougher than they normally did. I had to get carries on a couple of bosses, especially Act 3's interlude with Lythara and Act boss twins Zelina and Zorin. Both were due to arena-based issues. Lythara's is one half the wisps that push her difficulty up, and the other half is the chaos tornadoes that can bottleneck you into one half of the arena if you're not careful. The twins are not as bad as far as their attacks, but the arena effects with the lightning beams feels excessive and got me killed several times. Keep in mind though, this is all week 1 of this new patch as I'm writing this, and I imagine there will be some balancing that happens in the subsequent weeks. I've also really come to enjoy the abyssal content, those scars that rise from the ground and heal as you cleanse it of monsters. I can see this being potentially off-putting to new players because it is quite hard, but as I've adjusted, I've found myself really liking it, and now any endgame maps with abyssal content I will try and get to immediately. Speaking of New Zealand developed games, I want to shout this game out because it's one of the few horse games I've actually come to really enjoy. The game is what my partner describes as Gran Turismo with horses, and I can see that. I really enjoy working towards specific outcomes in the game, the story mode is good, the artwork is great, and the goals feel great to work through and come at a very achievable and manageable pace. You also have plenty of options on how much you want to interact with specific parts of the game. You can get better at racing by doing the races yourself and saving a bit of money in the process, or ask jockeys to race and skip to the results so you can get the needed information within 60 seconds. There's also cross-country and steeplechase. I love running the cross-country courses for easy cash, and steeplechase is also a great break from regular racing. Keep in mind I'm playing the desktop version, which you pay for up front. The mobile version is free, but it has lots of the usual monetization practices. However, there's generally a good amount of updates and events for both versions, so whatever you choose, the experience will feel fresh. More than anything, I trust Pickpock to do good by its players. I've heard several of their devs speak at GDC, and it's actually how I found out about this game. A talk aptly titled, "The Art of the Shitty First Draft." Pickpock has great QA and iteration processes and just really fundamentally understands how to make solid games. If there's any horse game you should get this year, I'd argue it's this one. Speaking of horse games and horse girls, here's a game with horse girls. This game is fun for a couple of weeks, mainly towards the beginning. It's very much a gacha game, which is a bit disappointing, but in the short time I spent with it, it was a ton of fun. The cutscenes are absolutely beautiful, the music bangs, and the dialogues with the girls are fun. It's a concept that's ridiculous on paper, and the devs fully understand that, and they fully lean into its absurdity while delivering a lot of content that you absolutely can access without paying a single cent. It's a free-to-play game with way more than the price of admission, so even if it's just for a short time, give it a whirl if you need something to cheer you up. Speaking of things to cheer you up, my friend Jamie made a pinball game. And if you don't know who Jamie is, he made Hellscreen, Doom with a rearview mirror, that also feels like the vision therapy test I was taking as a young adult. But it's exactly how it sounds. It's Vaporwave Pinball tables, and the vibes are immaculate. I know there aren't too many games that can compete with Space Cadet, but if you're looking for a new pinball game to play, highly recommend you check it out. Sound design's good, the aesthetic's great, and you'll be helping an indie dev make his next game. Get it now. Hope you like a good dick.
I used to be too embarrassed to invite people over to see my dick, but now, my dick's the talk of the town. I even have pictures of my dick. Check out that dick!
No, but seriously, this game is weird, and it's literally only to free your husband from the pain of watching you work on dick after dick, but I promise, at the end, it's worth it. Is it weird this is a comfort game to me? I didn't play Viscera Cleanup Detail, but I want to imagine that Crime Scene Cleaner is kinda like that. You're playing as a janitor that gets roped in to clean up after mobsters after your weedhead friend accidentally murders a dude or helps get him murdered, and it just gets more and more insane from there. There's a night at the museum level. But you're doing all of this to help your sick daughter get home. Do it for her. And your German Shepherd, Dexter. The levels are huge, sometimes a bit excessively so, but if you want an edgier power wash simulator, this is the game for you. There's good progression and even replayability, as the game has timed and other challenge modes to keep you on your toes as you mop up the blood. Your butt can save the world. That's the game. Well, apropos of nothing, Wolfenstein: The New Order. It's a pretty good game. You can kill Nazis in it. It's pretty fun. Yeah. There's something to be said about unsubtle pores paired with unsubtle messaging in cinematic mocap games. It's a video I'll do another time, but I do find it pretty funny how it seems to be a running theme in the industry. In any case, this is a game I played about a year after it came out on a PS4. Literally the only game I ever owned for the PS4. I bought the PS4 specifically for this game. And I loved it. I venture to say it changed my worldview a little bit. I do have some strange feelings about it. I do really appreciate it as a work of art, though. It was most definitely no easy feat to create a game like this. But, man, it is extremely tough looking at what are, ostensibly, robots, AIs, and, saying this is a normal and healthy thing to completely unsubtly compare their woes to African Americans fighting for their literal lives during the civil rights and BLM eras. This is, of course, a product of looking back at a 7-year-old game that couldn't have known that in 2025 we would still be fighting for human rights that are being taken less seriously than the rights of corporations to steal the entirety of humanity's work and create AIs that can't even make a sandwich. But, yes, I get it. At the time of release, I think it would have been potentially more impactful because the effects of systemic racism have a ripple effect that eventually affects everyone, not just black and brown people. And the androids in Detroit are of all races and genders, and they look like real people. So it'd be easy to actually see yourself in the position of an android if you ignore the wires and plastic. The obviousness and heavy hand in the writing room, though, does get to be a bit much, and people with keener eyes and ears will get annoyed at this game. I don't necessarily blame the writers for this, though. Some people are just that fucking dense and probably still won't get it after the game's done. But there's a specific point in Kara's storyline that annoys me greatly. Spoilers if you haven't played the game, timestamp for where to skip is on screen now. So, basically, she's brought home by a drug addict with a child named Alice. While Kara's doing her chores at this house, she knocks over some papers, and for a second we see a model of Alice on one of those papers. Kara looks at that paper, and you can see her LED flash as if she's processing information. This is ignoring that she can also just use her vision to scan Alice and see that Alice is also an android, considering she can scan the dishwasher and order a part for it in seconds. But no. Even after Luther tries to stop her several times and tell her that Alice is an android, this doesn't resolve until Kara's at Jericho and sees another model that looks like Alice, this time with an LED in the side of her head. It just feels like such a dumb thing to build tension over, considering we get several examples of androids falling in love with and caring for other androids. I guess maybe the message is that love should be unconditional and indiscriminate, which is fine, but it feels so contrived it makes Kara's implied storyline beyond the confines of the game much less interesting. At least with the other two characters, we know that they are going to be part of wider spread political messaging that will enact change, but Kara just fucks off to Canada with a little girl that will never grow up, destined to live a completely unchanging life. Hooray? And that's not necessarily bad, but it's just boring. Maybe that's the point, just wanting to live in peace with nothing else exciting happening the rest of your life. But I also don't know if the writers were thinking that way. Anyways, I do enjoy the game, but much like Doom the Dark Ages, I struggle with it if I think too long about it, so just enjoy the pretty Android pores and move along. Haha, this game. Fuck the corpos. Seriously, after watching, well, every politician in this world either turn into a maniacal tyrant or a hand-wringing coward, all bought by one group or another, I think it just feels nice to blow shit up, wreak havoc on corporate buildings, and fuck with politicians, even if it's just pixels. It's catharsis, plain and simple, and damn pretty to boot. But most importantly, it wrestles with knowing oneself, knowing one's principles, and understanding how we evolve and change as people, too. It wrestles with consent and grief and understanding the consequences of your choices. It is the human experience in a video game, a visceral, raw look into the human psyche and pulling out the best and worst parts of it. Thanks for watching! If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and let me know if you'd like to see more of these shorter roundups in the future. And if you would like to see more from me, please subscribe. I'm trying to be better about uploading at least once a month. And if you'd like to chuck a few bucks my way, you can get a membership and be the first to see videos. Alright, that's all my chilling. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!